Okay, we'll talk about the most recent issue. When China Coast Guard unleashed their water cannons against Philippine vessels at the Yuen Shoal, you call this dangerous and destabilizing. Can you please elaborate on Australia's position on this?
Of course, Australia's position on this has been constant, and we have always mentioned that this is a very important international waterway, not just for the Philippines, but for the world. And in an environment like this, we believe that UNCLOS provides the rules and guidelines about how countries should be actually operating in this very important part of the world. And what we saw with the water cannon was really against all of the rules-based order that we want to live in.
And I understand Australia was one of the first to uphold the 2016 arbitral ruling, which favored the Philippines.
That's right. Australia was the first country, really, one of the first countries to express their support for the 2016 arbitral award. I remember it very clearly when it was awarded to the Philippines. And Australian government made it very clear that it was legal and binding, and it should be a final decision that all claimants should actually respect. And we have actually said that ever since, without fail, at every opportunity. Because it's only when we respect the international law that we can all live in a world where countries have the right to make decisions in their own national interest, and when all countries can prosper and live in peace.
Madam Ambassador, tell us about your personal experience, because I heard you were there when the arbitral ruling came out.
Well, not so much that I was there when it came out, but certainly I was there when our expression of support was made. I remember very clearly, it was actually Shangri-La Dialogue when the then Prime Minister made a very strong statement through his speech that was delivered there in Singapore.
Okay, very good. And can you also tell us, because before it was laser lights, and then it became water cannons, if the Philippines decides to elevate this continued harassment of China to the UN General Assembly, can the Philippines count on Australia's support?
Australia always supports international law and rules-based order. So anything that is done to promote that, of course Australia will be supportive of that.
All right. Maybe know, what is Australia ready to offer the Philippines in terms of defense and security?
Thank you so much for asking me that question, Vicky. I've been dying to share with you how deep and long-lasting our defense and security cooperation has been between our two countries. And in particular, I wanted to share with you this exciting Indo-Pacific endeavor that is actually happening as we speak. This is a flagship engagement activity that the Australian Defence Force engages in each year since 2017. This year, for our Indo-Pacific Endeavour 2023, our bilateral program with the Philippines is really the centerpiece of this flagship activity. So exercise Alon, which will be a bilateral exercise between the Philippines and Australia, will be taking place, as I said, it's already happening, from 14th of August till the end of August. And we will be carrying out probably the biggest and most complex, and certainly first amphibious exercise that we have engaged in with the Philippines. And this will involve 1,200 Australian military personnel and around 700 AFP personnel.
Oh, it's a large contingent.
That's right, that's right. So I'm really excited about this exercise that's actually underway already. And in addition to that, our joint military exercises and training it's as if it's always happening. Because we have so many activities that we do together with the Philippines throughout the year, whether it's through Army, Navy, Air Force. We actually do this in all domains. So plenty that's happening there in that space.
Yes, we noticed that the support has really ramped up recently. Any reason behind this?
Well, I would say it's always been there, and it's actually maturing and growing as our relationships relationship grows, and it's responding to the threats and challenges that we are seeing as well in our region. So of course our military cooperation had a lot of emphasis around CT, especially around Marawi siege, and that has continued since. But as things become more important in the maritime domain, I think our relationship is also moving towards doing more in that space as well over time.
I see. When you say we share like this security capability, are you talking about military hardware as well?
Absolutely. For example, when our foreign minister was here in May, she announced the gifting of the equipment to help. Actually, it's just drones that will actually help with maritime domain awareness, and that was actually gifted to PCG, Philippine Coast Guard. So of course there are some hardware that is actually shared with the Philippines, but I think it's fair to say the main purpose of our cooperation is really to achieve interoperability between our forces, to achieve skills sharing, and to achieve training of our personnel. And this is why these joint exercises are so important, and this is why we have been putting a lot of emphasis in joint training as well.
Okay. You mentioned the Indo-Pacific endeavor. Will there be other joint exercises with Australia after the IPE?
Oh, absolutely. As I said, this is a very busy schedule. In fact, I think this coming year we will be having around 160, more than 160 joint exercises and activities with the Philippines. So you can imagine there will be many more things coming up even after the IPE 23 is completed.
And this is not just this year, it's been going on since 2017,
Absolutely. This is something I think general public doesn't know
Yes.
very well, but it's something that's been ongoing for many years now, and it's only deepening and it's only becoming bigger and more complex, so we can actually help each other's military capability and also achieve interoperability between our two countries.
Good. There's also talks of a joint patrol with Australia and other allies as well. Could that possibly happen this year?
Well, I mean, I think IPE 23 is a good example of joint civil maritime activities and other maritime activities. When my Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Defence was here in the Philippines in February, he had a very good conversation with the then Secretary Galvez about the possibility of doing joint patrols. And I think it's fair to say the conversation between our departments, defence departments, are progressing very well.
And these joint patrols will take place in the South China Sea.
Well, look, I mean, I don't usually talk about the details of those operations, but of course this is something that Australia has done for many, many years. We believe in freedom of navigation and overflight, and therefore we have actually done patrols and movements through the South China Sea in accordance with UNCLOS, and we encourage other countries to do so as well in accordance with UNCLOS.
Okay. I also want to talk about this Defense Pact with Australia, the UK, and the US. Yes, can you tell us, will that be, the submarine voyage, will that be passing through South China Sea?
So that's what you're referring to is what's called AUKUS.
Yes, AUKUS.
And there is a little bit of misunderstanding about what AUKUS is about. The main objective of AUKUS is for those three countries, in particular, well, the US and UK, helping Australia acquire nuclear-powered submarines, but with conventional weapons. And that's a very important point to make. We want to acquire submarines that are nuclear-powered, for reasons where the nuclear-powered submarines can be underwater for much longer, and there are lots of benefits for why you would want to acquire nuclear-powered submarines. But when it comes to nuclear weapons, we've signed a treaty for non-proliferation. We are very serious about that, and Australia has squeaky clean performance when it comes to compliance to our international obligation. So these submarines will not have nuclear weapons. So that is the real objective of AUKUS, for those three countries to work together so that Australia can acquire nuclear-powered submarines. And we have a very clear plan on how we are going to do that. And we have worked with IAEA to ensure that everything we're doing is in accordance with international rules. The AUKUS, as three countries, is not a body that will be doing normative functions like doing things together as a pact. I think you described it as a defense pact. And certainly there will be a lot of cooperation around our capabilities, and beyond submarines, the plan is for AUKUS to also work in using advanced technologies to further enhance all our countries' defense capabilities. I think it's probably fair to say that, of course, Australia, like the Philippines, work with the US and UK in many areas of our activities. But in terms of describing whether AUKUS will actually travel through the South China Sea as a grouping is probably somewhat misrepresented.
I see, but how will this impact the Philippines, AUKUS?
Well, we believe that what we are doing here through AUKUS, which is for Australia to acquire nuclear-powered submarines, will help the Philippines in terms of keeping the region safe. Australian government has just recently issued a defense strategy review. And in it, we actually talk a lot about how the region is a much more complicated and complex and challenging environment, and that in that environment, deterrence is also a very important component of our policy response. So we believe Australia being armed with nuclear submarine will ensure that we actually help with that deterrence effect for the whole region. And I'm so pleased to say that the Philippines have been very supportive of AUKUS and Australia's desire to acquire nuclear-powered submarines.
All right. Now, China has also offered to conduct joint exercises. What's your position on this?
China with the Philippines, do you mean?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I think, as long as it's to really promote rules-based order, I think countries have every right to work together in order to ensure peace and stability in our region.
I see. But China asserts that exercises in the region must not conflict or interfere in South China Sea disputes. What's your reaction to this?
Well, this is where the rules-based order is so important. Of course, countries have disputes. And when those disputes are in place, most countries encourage the countries involved to use the international law and international systems to peacefully solve those disputes. And this is what the international community is saying. And when the international law makes a decision on those disputes, then it is all our responsibility to adhere to that. To not challenge it, but to adhere to it. So to the extent that the arbitral award made very, very clear what part of the West Philippine Sea really, I think the rule was that the whole West Philippine Sea is within the EEZ of the Philippines, then it is actually upon all of us to respect the decisions that are made under international law.
But China does not even recognize this, the arbitral ruling.
And I think that is the biggest problem that we are facing with.
Okay. Now, the Philippines has a VFA in place with just two countries, the US and Australia.
That's right.
I understand that the Philippine Senate ratified the VFA maybe a decade ago.
That's right.
Do you see any need to update this?
I don't think there's any discussion or ideas to update at the moment. But of course, that can change.
Yes.
But it has served us very well and is continuing to serve us very well. Australia is very proud that we are one of only 2 countries
Yes.
that have such an agreement with the Philippines. And that has certainly facilitated all these very important joint exercises and training that I mentioned previously, for all of them to happen in a very efficient and effective way.
Are you considering possibly adopting EDCA sites similar to what the U.S. had done?
Once again, I'm not aware of those conversations. Everything that we do with the Philippines is with appropriate approval, or consultation, of course, and approval by the AFP. So we tend to do a lot of our training and exercises at AFP military bases, and we will continue to do so.
Okay. I also want to ask Australia's position when it comes to voting on the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea. Some feel that only claimant countries should be able to vote. What's your position on this?
Well, the Code of Conduct that you're mentioning is actually a negotiation that's happening between ASEAN and China.
Yes.
And of course, Australia is not a member of ASEAN, although we are a dialogue partner, and we were the first
yes.
country to become a dialogue partner of ASEAN. And we absolutely support the centrality of ASEAN for peace and stability to exist and continue in the region. But coming back to the Code of Conduct, because Australia is not a member of ASEAN, we don't get to be part of that negotiations. But what Australia wants to see through the Code of Conduct negotiation is to ensure that whatever is agreed does not disadvantage those that were not part of that conversation, that it actually still is in line with international law and rules-based order.
But would you think that non-claimant countries should also be able to vote? When it
For
comes
the
to
Code of Conduct?
Yes.
I understand the Code of Conduct negotiation that was really initiated by ASEAN with China was really the initiative of the ASEAN as a bloc. So I can't really say I have a clear position on whether they should or shouldn't vote. I think this is a matter that ASEAN as a bloc needs to actually sort out.
Okay. Okay, when the Australian Foreign Minister Wong visited recently, she spoke of a maritime security package. Can you provide us with any updates regarding this package?
Sure. I already mentioned one of them, which was actually the equipment that we provided for the maritime domain awareness. Other elements of the package involved very, very useful law of the sea courses, expanding on that. We also believe strongly on women in security. So there will be some training and meeting of women Coast Guards that are involved in this very important work to actually further share experiences and further enhance their skills. Other areas where we're working on, I know that as part of that package, we were also providing some technical know-how on how to measure environmental effects of oil spill and the projection of that over time. And of course, it was because of the recent oil spill that actually happened in the Philippines. And we also continue to work with the Philippines, not just in terms of maritime security, but also maritime environmental protection as well. We believe that's also a very important area where we can work with the Philippines to highlight the importance of the international law and international rules-based order as well.
I see. You know, Minister Wong also spoke of possibly enhancing trade, investment, and two-way tourism between our two countries.
Yes.
Do we already see that happening? I understand that Australia doesn't want to just import goods, they want to invest also in the Philippines.
Absolutely.
So do you already see some of that happening right now?
We certainly are, and this is a really exciting area of our cooperation where, to be honest, compared to other areas of our cooperation, whether it's in defense, people, or development, I think the trade and investment, it was a little bit underdone. So we've really put a lot of effort in ensuring we really maximize the cooperation in this very important area. And as you said, Vicky, this is not just about Australia wanting to sell our things to the Philippines or wanting just the Philippines' investment into Australia. For Australia, it is just as important that we get more Philippine products going into Australia and we get more Australian businesses investing in the Philippines. And to that extent, we have what's called Southeast Asia Economic Strategy to 2040 that will be launched soon. It's actually being worked on at the moment. And the idea there is to actually come up with real practical measures that the Australian government can put in place to really encourage this two-way trade and investment. And I'm really pleased to announce that there are many really big Australian companies doing exciting things in the Philippines. Just to name a few, we have Macquarie that is actually investing in areas like floating solar panels through their Blue Leaf company set up in Singapore, partnered with a local, very, very good local company. And we have also Macquarie investing in telecommunication towers. All of these in areas that are top priority for the Philippines. And these projects have received fantastic treatment by the Philippine government through things such as green lane investment processes. And so we are already seeing a huge investment flowing into the Philippines from many Australian companies.
And when you say products that you're importing into Australia from the Philippines, what are the top products that we're talking about?
We've currently in conversation around mangoes and other, fruits that are produced in the Philippines. There are also already some machinery things, equipment that are also exported to Australia. But I think there are many more areas where we can actually explore further trading opportunities between our two countries.
Okay, very good. Okay, you know what, with the pandemic pretty much behind us, will it be easier for Filipinos to perhaps get visas to Australia?
Well, absolutely. Our colleagues who are working on visas are working very hard to ensure that the turnover period isn't too long.
How long is it now?
Well, I mean, they have certain charters, but I know for a fact that for many visitor visas, things are being done within a week. So that's a fantastic turnover. Don't quote me on it as a real requirement, because that's just showing how effective my colleagues have been in actually processing large numbers of visa applications, and we want to try and keep it that way. So absolutely, getting visas to Australia is pretty easy and pretty timely right now, and I really encourage many Filipinos to go and visit Australia. Of course, there are so many Filipinos already that are calling Australia home. In fact, 400,000 Filipinos call Australia home, and it is our 5th largest diaspora community. So even just on that basis, there will be lots of opportunities and lots of reasons for Filipinos to go and visit their friends and family, and while there, look around the beautiful country that is Australia.
How welcoming is Australia for Filipinos, let's say, who want to study or work there?
Very welcoming. You just have to look at me to see how multicultural Australia is, and that's something that I'm really, really proud of, being an Australian. Australia is a country where everyone is given fair go, and where everyone who is willing to work hard is rewarded. I can really,
I can see you're a third culture kid yourself, right?
That even through my personal experience, that is the case. And we have excellent skills worker migration programs which welcome people with the right skills that our country needs to come and become part of the vibrant multicultural society that is Australia.
Is Australia still the #1 destination for Filipino students wanting to
It was
study abroad?
certainly number 1 destination pre pandemic when you included vocational education as well.
Yes.
And it continues to be very popular for Filipino students to go and study in Australia. In fact, as we speak, we have close to 20,000 Filipino students enrolled and studying in Australia right now. Of course, we want to expand on that. We think we have an excellent product, excellent education system to offer to Filipino people, and we would love to have more Philippine students studying in Australia. And I remember when I was preparing for this posting, I went around to talk to many universities, and every university without fail said Filipino students were one of their favorites.
Oh, why is that so?
They said Filipino people were kind, really hardworking, and so easy to get along with.
Oh, wonderful.
And they said it's these kind of students they really want as part of their community.
Is it easy for students to go about applying for scholarships to Australia?
Of course.
Yes.
Australia government has been offering Australian government scholarships, Australia Awards,
Yes.
now for many decades. And you know, while the numbers go up and down, you know, it will range somewhere around 250 to around 70 scholarship positions each year. And we are so proud of the Australia Awards because this, we actually select the awardees with Philippine government. So, you know, we invite Philippine government officials to be part of the panel to ensure that we actually selecting the right people who will come back to the Philippines to do amazing things for your country. And through this program, we have more than 3,000 Australian alumni, which represents the scholarship awardees over a number of decades. But what's really exciting is that we have also a very, very big Australian alumni network of self-funded students as well. And we estimate that there's probably around 100,000 Filipinos that have studied in Australia at some point.
And they come back and do their thing here.
And that's the thing. And the thing about Australian Alumni Network is that unlike some other countries, when Filipinos go and study in Australia, most of them actually come back armed with these new skills and new motivation to make a difference. And in fact, as part of our Australia Award system, we make it a requirement for awardees to prepare a plan on what they want to achieve when they come back after the scholarship is completed. And we help them to monitor and implement their action plan upon return to the Philippines.
Yes. What are we seeing are the top courses that are attractive to Filipinos going to Australia?
You know, it varies so much, you will be amazed. And there is a very good reason for that. As I said, we want to deliver what the Philippines actually needs. And we each year consult various departments and stakeholders to see where the gaps are. And so it will be no surprise to you that this year there was a real focus around maritime law and international law around maritime domains. There's also been a lot of focus around things like cyber security, because it's another emerging threat to all of us, and it's really important that we have appropriately skilled people to help us address this very big threat that's emerging. And then, as I said, things like project management, things like public governance, things like real research into cutting-edge technology. These are many different areas where our awardees go to study. And we make sure that these scholarships are delivered through our top universities across whole of Australia.
So it's not just nursing.
Oh, no, absolutely
It's more
not.
than that.
Yes, absolutely not.
You know, Australia has remained very attractive to Filipino immigrants and other immigrants as well. What practices and strategies can the Philippines possibly pick up from Australia that you can share with us?
it's something that I've already been discussing with some of my colleagues in DFA. You're absolutely right. We've been very successful as a multicultural society, and I would say, the number one thing is people's mindfulness to be really inclusive and to be tolerant and embracing of people's differences. But not only that, to actually use it as your country's biggest and best asset, right? Having a country full of people from different backgrounds who can speak different languages, who enjoy different cuisines, who has different way of life, it really means you can actually pick out the best of all those worlds to turn that into your country's biggest asset. And I think that's what Australia is really good at doing. We have a very strong agenda around inclusion. The government and the private sector is very focused on not only gender equality, but ensuring people with disability is treated fairly, ensuring that our Indigenous community is given the respect and the support that they deserve, and to ensuring that people from culturally and linguistically a diverse background are made to feel very much part of Australia, and not only that, be given the opportunity to contribute to Australia in a way that only they can do because they've got this diverse culture and background to draw from.
Oh, wonderful. You know what? Pretty exciting visits we've been having lately. Last February, we had the Deputy Prime Minister, Vicky Morales, coming over. Last March, we had the Special Envoy for Southeast Asia, Nicholas Moore. And then April, we had the Trade and Tourism Minister. May, we had the Foreign Minister, Wong. Are we seeing more high-level visits coming our way, possibly between our heads of state, possibly this September?
Vicky, you've been studying. Absolutely. Our Prime Minister is due to visit the Philippines, Manila, in September. And we are all very excited.
Yes. When exactly in September?
He will be here for a bilateral meeting with President Marcos on 8th of September.
I see. Wonderful.
Yes.
We're looking forward to that.
Thank you.
And I wanted to ask, because the difference between a bilateral partner and a strategic partner, I hear that will possibly be upgraded to strategic partner. What does that mean for the Philippines and Australia?
We are currently what's called comprehensive partners. These are, I guess, terminologies that governments use to try and portray the nature and the state of the relationship. And so we are currently comprehensive partners, and we will be looking to elevate that to strategic partnership. What does it really mean in practice, you ask? When our foreign minister was here, I thought she described it the best. She said, actually, this elevation is to reflect what we are already doing. And sometimes, formal processes can actually take time to catch up to the reality. And that is, Australia and the Philippines are already operating as strategic partners. And by formally elevating to this strategic partnership between our two governments, we will be giving due respect and due consideration to this very important relationship where we are already working very much as strategic partners. And that framing also then allows us to do more in different areas. And so the idea of strategic partnership is to ensure that sitting underneath it, we create even more opportunities for our decision makers to interact and share ideas and have conversations on more regular basis, but also pursue real outcomes in the area of trade and investment, and of course further deepen our very important defense and security cooperation in a way where we actually transform together in response to changing and emerging environment that we face.
You mentioned transforming together. I understand you've been doing a lot of meaningful work in Malawi. I understand the Philippines is probably number 5 among the countries that receive aid from Australia. I don't know if that's accurate. Yes, but can you tell us more about the work you're doing in Marawi? I understand much of the funds go to Mindanao.
That's right. Once again, you've done your research, Vicky. Thank you very much for that. It's absolutely true that Australia's development program for the Philippines is our 5th largest, and the development fund has been going up for now 2 years consecutively in size. So that's great news for all of us. And a big chunk of that at the moment has been going to Mindanao. And the kind of work that we're doing there is really to ensure peace building, but also help the local community find livelihood. We have also had real emphasis on education to ensure that we start from very young and that the education system helps with de-radicalization and proper information provision. So there are a number of areas actually where we are working in Mindanao and in Marawi as well. But these are some of the main programs that we have been pursuing in Mindanao. And in fact, now is a really important time for us because we have just completed our 5-year program in July 2023 for our peace building initiative in Mindanao. And we have just as a result launched the new program, which is going to go out to 2028 to help Mindanao region ensure that we protect the wonderful gains that has been made by the Philippine government. By the way, I mean, what's been achieved there is really, really amazing. And the Philippines should be very proud of its achievements. And we want to make sure that through this program, Australia can do our bit to help the Philippines to protect those gains, to ensure there is ongoing pressure to achieve ongoing peace and stability, but more importantly, economic growth in the region as well.
Okay. I understand there's also a lot of cooperation on different levels. I understand that the Australian police are working very closely with the local police in tracking down Australian nationals who have been found guilty of sexually harassing Filipino children. Are there any efforts to curb these activities?
Absolutely, yes. And these efforts are ongoing, and Australian government is very serious about our partnership with the Philippines. It is really sad that these things, happen, but AFP, which is Australian Federal Police, in partnership with PNP, have done amazing things in this space. In fact, through our cooperation, we have actually saved more than 600 children out of harm's way. And it has resulted in a number of prosecutions of both facilitators and perpetrators. And so Australian government is committed to this work. And this is another area where I really want to congratulate the Philippines government for their huge effort and like real achievement. And this is important work. We have to keep this up because we have to make sure we can save these children from harm's way.
Yes, and the Australian Border Patrol has been working very closely with the local police, and that's helped them a lot.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely.
Okay, my last question. Are you a Taylor Swift fan? I understand. Yeah, you are, really? Are you watching the Taylor Swift concert?
Well, I want to watch it. All the tickets were sold out very quickly, as you probably know. So it will probably have to be from TV of some sort. I looked around the world to see whether there were any tickets available, but they've been going very fast.
It's just all scalper prices. I saw the one in the US. It was amazing.
I bet.
My daughter's a big Swiftie, and
I see.
So we were looking at Australia, but that sold out so fast.
Yes.
I mean, too bad you skipped the Philippines. So I understand you'll be getting a lot of Filipinos flying to Australia sometime February to catch the concert.
Wow! So they did a better job than me to search for the tickets because I couldn't get them. By the time I thought about it, they were all sold out.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Oh well,
tickets.
lucky them.
Yeah, there's a lot of a really long process to What's your favorite Taylor Swift song?
Oh gosh, now you're putting me on the spot. I'm probably too old to know the names.
Maybe Cruel Summer.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, thank you so much for being here and being with us and answering all our questions.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
this
you so
has certainly
much.
been a very great interaction with you. Thank you so
Really,
much,
really
Madam Ambassador.
appreciated this opportunity.
And we look forward to
Thank
the
you,
many
Vicky.
activities that we'll be having between our two countries.
Absolutely. Watch the space. Really exciting times between
Yes.
Australia and the Philippines.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Madam Ambassador.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.